Hello guys, this is Dama.82 and we're back here for part 3 of my tank building tutorial. And firstly, we're going to just start off with some other tank designs here that I have. Now, I'm sure you guys remember this from the second video here. This is the tutorial tank I built for you guys and put up on the workshop. Very, very basic tank. Didn't really do a whole lot with the aesthetics or anything, but yeah. So this was basically an example that I gave you guys of what a tank would be like with the turret sitting on top of the tank as opposed to being inside the tank. So I loaded in some other vehicles here that just to give you guys some comparison here. Now, as you can see, this uses the 400mm Hesh round, the 2-meter one that I like to use a lot. But over here we have my Son of Odin tank, which I use in me and Heitzmeister's co-op of Ashes of the Empire. As you can see, it uses the exact same round, but it has a much better sustained fire rate of 20 RPM versus 11.6 RPM. Now, you're probably going to see a fairly significant increase in the cost, but not by too much. Also, the tank is a little bit taller in this kind of configuration, which gives it a higher silhouette. Now, the problem with the higher silhouette is it makes your tank a much easier target. But, as you can see, it can almost double your firepower. But the Tetris can be a lot more difficult. Let's just so you guys can see what's going on here. Whoops. There we go. Now, as you can see here, it's there's not a whole lot of room in here. You can see the AI, the boiler, pretty much everything has been compressed to a very, very tight spot here in the back, along with the shell customizer. This customizer here is just for the side-mounted sponson guns. But yeah, it's got some RTGs in here, AI, all that good stuff. And here inside the actual turret itself, it's just a pure autoloader, which just comes up through the top of the tank. And it's got some more bits and gubbins. And in here, the gauge coolers and whatnot. And over here we have the ammunition. And again, now this is a good spot to put the ammunition because it'll draw fire towards the front of the tank where there's going to be the most armor. And here we have the spall liner. So yeah, enemy shell is going to come in here. It's going to have to deal with 2 layers of metal, then 2 layers of heavy, and then the spall liner. So good luck trying to get through all this because heavy armor is insanely tough. And if heat or Hesh gets to about right here, it's all just going to kind of splatter against this heavy armor right here. It's not going to really do a whole lot. So let's look at the turret once more. As you can see, with it being on the inside like this, there is a hell of a lot more room for you to work with as far as building your main gun here. And all this is going to be much better protected down here because you'll have less chance of an ammo detonation if you have armored the tank correctly. And since this is all heavy armor, if this does get taken out, the tank will still be able to run because all of the engine components back here, all of the AI, all this stuff, this is going to be just fine. But still, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to get to this turret. Let's have a look. Here, what the armoring looks like around the turret. As you can see, there's some AI components in here to control the sponson mounted guns, the casemates. But yeah, a shell would have to get through all of this armor and this heavy armor here. Now, you don't really have to worry near as much as your side armor as you would your heavy armor, because if you have done the ACB setup correctly like I've shown you in the first video, then most of the fire is going to be taken on the front of the tank. So yeah, imagine a Hesh or heat round comes in here. It's just going to just scatter against this ball liner right here. This part was actually armored up just a little bit more than usual because this is where we got some AI components in here, so that way these sponson mounted turrets would be able to work without too much risk of them getting disabled. So as you can see here, back where all the AI is and all this stuff here, let me just move the cutter back a little. So here we have where all of our most vital components are, and we got some armor here on the outside to protect it. So we got like a layer of armor or a metal armor here, then we got this spall liner here made out of stone, and then we have the heavy armor. So yeah, good luck trying to get Hesh or heat through this too. So an armor configuration like this would make a tank such as this pretty much near immune to heat or Hesh. I mean, yeah, it's still going to take the kinetic or thump damage depending on what shell you use, but it's going to last a hell of a lot longer against it. So let's move on to some other tanks that I have here that I wanted to show you guys. This one I threw together last night. It's meant to be a flak tank. And I was particularly proud of the Tetris I was able to do with the main gun on this. It is a 400mm flak belt blaster with rail assistance. This thing will chew through pretty much about every fire and ashes of the Empire. It kind of struggles a bit with the helicopters from the who was it? The Steel Empire. But this gun right here, it fires at a pretty insane rate, actually. Let me just show you guys the fire rate on it. A sustained fire rate of 82.7. And also, I have it rigged to where it can pull double duty here with the anti-missile cannon controller and a regular controller. Actually, I forgot to change the priority on that. Oops. But yeah, this thing will try to intercept incoming missiles first, and if there's any air targets, it'll prioritize those second. The armoring scheme is pretty much the same as the Sun Odin tank that we just looked at over there, except it's a little more thinner here in the front. I don't expect this to go up against other tanks, just aircraft, so it'll have less damage to soak up. And once again, I have the armor up here in the front to draw fire to the front of the tank. Now, something else interesting that could be done with this kind of setup is the shell type could be switched out for a Hesh. You could have it just spewing out gobs and gobs of Hesh rounds, which would make it very, very powerful against a lot of Ashes of the Empire designs, especially the Onyx Watch. And you'd still probably maintain the same rate of fire, but you'd probably have to redo the target prioritization cards, but that's not too big a deal. And these radiators on here in the back, they don't really do anything, they're just mimicked on there, make it look cool. But yeah, this uses the same type of power as a lot of other my designs, a mix of RTG and steam boilers. Has the same tank steering setup that I showed you in the first video. But yeah, as you guys can see though, by putting your turret inside the tank as opposed to sticking it on top like I did with the first one, you have lots more room to put bigger guns inside. So let me show you what that can look like in a bit more of an extreme case here. This guy right here is called the Tankenstein. It is my heavy tank and it loves to eat Onyx Watch. So let's have a quick look on the inside here. Again, ammo up front. And it's got all of these 3-meter ammo racks. Autoloaders here. This basically was just me trying to jam as many 3-meter autoloaders as I could into this. But this is a big honking gun for a tank in Ashes. And back here you can see that it's same setup as a lot of tanks I use, except this one will generate more power because it's using the larger boilers. This is a very, very compact boiler system. I can't remember where I picked it up from, but it's not originally mine. Again, using the tank steering setup that I've showed you guys before. And here's the shell. And this thing is completely maxed out at 500 millimeter. This thing is going to hurt. I mean, look at that Hesh thump damage. Yeah, this is a tank specifically designed to kill other heavy tanks. Some very, very powerful shields up here. ACB controlled, of course, to conserve power. Very minimal RTG here just to power out outside of combat. I believe it's got some shielding on the front of it, yes. But But yeah, this is kind of an extreme case of what you can do with guns like this. In having the turret inside the tank as opposed to just sitting it on top. Again, either way is fine, but you just get so much more firepower in doing it in a configuration like this. And next, I got this little guy that I actually made during a stream. This this is probably the cheapest tank out of here, if I'm to be honest. Or, well, probably not the cheapest, but yeah. I just wanted to see what kind of madness I could do with the casemate guns here, and I was actually shocked at how well it did. It's very cheap, RTG powered, and it's got a pretty good amount of ammo in here. Now this one here is meant to be a broadsider. The idea behind it is that it's just going to go into a big orbit of the battlefield and just pummel the hell out of it with all these little casemate guns that are all over it. Now, a setup like this could actually work very, very good with missiles as well. My heavy missile launcher, the Scudley, it just has a missile that raises up on the back of it and fires a big old HE radar guided missile straight up, and after that's done, I mean, you really don't need any sensors or anything, because the radar guides usually does a pretty good job of trying to find targets itself. But yeah, that's pretty good for like doing light damage and harassment. It'll just kind of dance around the battlefield, just going in a big orbit around it, just spraying everything. And over here is a co-op build that me and Heitzmeister did, called the Sturmtiger. It's based off of a tank that the Germans used in World War II. Is probably more like kind of like an anti-tank mortar than an actual tank, but there's not really a whole lot to this. I mean, you see this big barrel that's mimicked over this, but it's got like a huge honking missile inside of it. And yeah, it's just going to pop out a missile when it's at such and such many meters, and it'll gladly keep doing that. I've seen the things do some crazy, crazy damage. But the reason why I wanted to show you guys is not just so as much because of the missile. This is actually an older version. The newer one is a radar-guided one. We've had some difficulties with this one. So, yeah, Heitzmeister has upgraded it since then. I wanted to show you guys this breadboard here. Now, I did not do this setup whatsoever. Heitzmeister actually put this together, and I know pretty much nothing about breadboard. I'm just wanted to show you guys what it looked like in here, and that doing the tank steering configuration is completely viable with breadboard. Again, like I said, I'm not too familiar with it, so I'm just sticking with ACBs for now. Maybe I'll come back to it and try to learn how to do it, but yeah, as of right now, I'm not too familiar with it. But yeah, doing a breadboard is perfectly viable with a tank steering configuration. Yeah, this thing's purpose is primarily a tank destroyer. And as you can see, we've done all kinds of mimic work to this thing to make it look amazing, which I think is probably one of the better vehicles that me and him have made so far. And this little guy over here, this design, this thing has just been amazing. As you can see, it's extremely cheap. And there's several reasons why, but first let me show you guys the insides of this. It's very, very, very simple. and it's got a very, very big gun. This is a tank destroyer. Now, there's a huge option, or amount of options that you have when you come to building a tank, but well, some that people don't explore a lot is doing a fixed gun build like this. With fixed guns, you have a lot more room to build your main weapons. As you can see, this thing is using 4-meter autoloaders. I think this one is set up for like a pure hesh round. Yeah, this thing is nasty, nasty, nasty. And it'll just gladly sit back, I think, at about 200 meters and just plink away at its targets. And you can set that up fairly easily with that ACB setting from the first video. The armor on it is pretty thin, but this thing, it's not engaged near as much, and it's very, very cheap. So losing these isn't particularly bad, but thankfully, since it stays so far away from combat, it's fairly rare. Yeah, this thing is pretty damn dangerous. There's all kinds of different ways that you can do these, actually. For instance, here's my Stormstug. I hate it when they bounce like this. I really do. Oh, don't land on top of that, please. Alright, good. And basically, all this is just one big armored box with big ol' hesh spam guns. And this thing is scary against heavily armored targets. And it's basically the same concept as this tank destroyer here. It's just scaled up much, much bigger. Just so you guys can have a look at the insides here. And that is just me putting as many autoloaders down here as I possibly could. And this thing is built to take damage because it's just got gobs and gobs and gobs of armor here with the wood spall liner. And see if I can find another example for you guys here. Now, if this is the one I think it is, yes, you can also do this with cram cannons. Actually, this works very, very well for cram cannons because you can fit a lot more of the gun into the tank. As you can see, it's set up for a big APHE round. So yeah, that's some of the benefits as to having a fixed gun as opposed to a turret in a tank building. With the fixed guns, you probably get the most space possible for adding weapons. Now, then you have laser tanks. Let's see here if I can find it for you guys here. Yeah, here we go, Lazy Boy. As you can see, this guy's pretty expensive, but this is a laser tank. And it primarily runs off of a fuel engine when in combat, and uses these RTGs for steering when out. And before the laser rework, this thing was amazing, and it was shooting down aircraft, it was blowing holes through tanks, it was pretty wicked. But the great thing about laser tanks is you can have all of the actual weapon parts inside the tank itself. like you would with a over here with the Tankenstein, but you don't have to worry about having any of that stuff exposed through the turret, because you can just, it's almost kind of like a hybrid of doing a turret that goes down into the side of the tank and a turret that's on top of the tank, because you have the weapon components inside the hull of the tank itself, but all of the turret parts you just use transceivers, and you just beam that laser power up into the hull of through the hull of the tank, and excuse me, up into the turret here. So yeah, I just wanted to do this video so I can give you guys some more ideas on different types of tanks that you can build. As you can see from what we've looked at here, there's a lot of versatility. So let me know if you guys like the series here. I know it was kind of short. I hope you all have learned some things from it. And well, have yourselves a hell of a day and keep your hammer high. Later.